If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven, come hang out with us. Or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches Deck of Oracles. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
G.B. Jones is a Canadian artist, filmmaker, musician, publisher of zines, known for her vast contributions to both queer and punk media. She initially gained recognition for her work in the fanzine JDs, which she co-founded and co-published with Bruce LaBruce. GB also co-founded and performed with the experimental post-punk band Fifth Column, who became mothers of feminist punk. She has directed several films, including The Troublemakers, The Yo-Yo Gang, and The Lollipop Generation, and her artwork continues to be shown worldwide. For me, as a punk kid growing up in southern Ontario in the 90s, GB's influence loomed large. Someone whose work literally changed the world as I knew it. Kathleen Hanna from Bikini Kill said, quote, "Well, if I can ever be of help to draw attention to G.B. Jones's art. I mean, she did so much for me in my 20s in terms of informing my identity as a writer and musician and performer. I really could never repay her. So the more people can learn about her, the happier I am," end quote. Zine Queen Vaginal Davis, whom I've written about for the Missing Witches zine, insists, quote, "There wouldn't be a Riot Girl movement without Fifth Column," end quote. G.B. Jones invented the terms homocore and queercore back in the 80s, kicking off the modern reclamation of the word queer. So when GB put out a book earlier this year called Witches, I thought, yes, here's my chance to chat with a punk icon. The Zoom meeting was set. The coven gathered. And GB's laptop chose that night to bite the dust. "No problem," I told her, "we'll figure it out." Well, remember how last week we talked about Killing Joke and the potential contained within destruction? Here's a great example. GB's laptop bit the dust. But it just so happened that I was going to be in her hometown, Toronto, the following weekend. So GB agreed to meet me in person. The interview you're about to hear is as old school as it comes. GB and I found a quiet corner in her local public library. You'll hear room sounds, ambient noises as we talk in half whispers that I recorded live with a field recorder balanced on a pile of books. After we finished recording, we went out for coffee and gabbed more about our lives. GB has offered to play xylophone on a track for my new band. I lamented how impossible it is to find Fifth Column on vinyl, and GB told me that a reissue is in the works, that she and Caroline could come on the pod together next spring as Fifth Column to dive deeper into feminist punk. So, we had a disaster. Zoom call fail. But that disaster led to something so much more. GB and I formed a face-to-face human connection that I know will bear future fruit. This is anxiety medication. To know that things going wrong might be making way for something better. Now let's ease our way into this library field recording, as we're less than 2 weeks away from Samhain, with one of Fifth Column's spookier tunes, Detox Killer. Rising Witches Pantheon, GB Jones. Hi, GB, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me on this amazing podcast.
I'm so excited to be sitting down with you. It's wild to me. This is like one of those, you know, I've interviewed some legends, I'm proud to say. I don't know if you know Jinx Monsoon.
Yes.
Or Fayette Hauser from the Croquettes.
Yes.
So obviously I have a thing for iconic redheads.
I haven't met either of those people, but I've definitely heard of them.
Yes, icons of redheadedness. So what do you want our listeners to know about you that they might not already know?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I'm tempted to say nothing, but that's not a good answer.
I mean, maybe nothing is the right answer because I know, I think it was Bruce who said, Bruce LaBruce who said that you had this notion of like sometimes not showing up is cooler than showing up, you know, being a mystery and being that sort of elusive chanteuse as it was. So if the answer to the question, what do you want our listeners to know about you, is nothing, I think that that's very, very on brand for you.
Well, yeah, sometimes I feel like people know too much about other people. And
Yeah.
it's like, I think I'd rather know less about certain people who are always in the media and always talking, and you're just like, oh my God, please, like, you know, the President of the United States, please go away. So there is something to be said for not being constantly in the media all the time, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some things that you like to keep private, and I think, you know, that's valuable in this age of, like, Instagram and, like, posting every single thing about every part of your life. It's like, don't these people want anything to be private in their lives? Like, don't they want to have kind of intimacy? It's strange to me.
I agree. I'm kind of a very private person, and I really don't get that compulsion to put my life,
Yeah.
my breakfast or my
Yeah,
whatever, my
right.
my inner dialogue. Nobody needs to hear that. So before we like dive into again your legendary, iconic, foundational history, I don't want to go too far before we talk about witches.
Right.
So tell me about this book. How did it come to be? What was the genesis of the idea?
Well, I started drawing witches in 2016. The first drawing I did was Joan Bennett in Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed it to a gallery owner, and he was like, no one wants to see pictures of old women.
Ugh,
And so instantly I thought, that's what I'm going to
that's
do.
all I'm going to do.
So that's what I spent the next few years doing, just drawing. I ended up being witches of all different ages, from like childhood to old age, but I just wanted to like start drawing these amazing women that I've been admiring for so long, who, you know, I don't think a vast majority of people are all necessarily familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And I also lamented the state of art in the kind of pagan community.
Mm-hmm.
I was really tired of, like, say, going on Pinterest or whatever and see every representation of witches are like 21-year-old models in a pointy hat. And I'm just
Beautiful
like,
long manicured nails.
yeah,
and,
yeah, everything perfect. And it's just like, these aren't real people. I don't even know if they're real witches. I mean, they could be, but not every witch is 21 and looks like a model.
Yeah.
So I just thought there needs to be room. And also, like, not all pagan art has to be like cute elf people with pointy ears and like, you know, there's a lot of art from that, like, when you think of, I'm just trying to think of his name now. A.O. Spare.
Yes.
And his amazing work, and how that doesn't seem to like resonate in the pagan community as much as I think it should, because that's, like, to me, really incredible, exciting artwork
Yes.
that represents, you know, what I imagine I'd like to think of our culture as being in the pagan world.
I agree completely. You know, there seems to be this like, it's got to look Celtic, or it's got to look folky, or it's got to look soft, like you say. And to me, I'm into the punks. I'm into, you know, G.B. Jones, Genesis P. Orridge, Austin Spare, like you talked about. You know, these are, to me, Brian Geisen and William S. Burroughs. These are like the punks of magic, and that's what I'm into.
Yeah. And like, you know, my friend Scott Evans does incredible pagan work, and, you know, I don't think it's so, it's just the state of pagan art was causing me no end of consternation. So I thought, there's got to be some remedy to this. There's got to be some alternative. And that was part of the reason I did it as well. So those two kind of, and just my general interest in capturing this panorama of witches. A pantheon, actually, I think of it as.
Yeah, that's how we describe who we feature on the Missing Witches podcast as well. Like, we are creating a new set of deities for ourselves out of real people.
Right.
You know, deities are great, but I want to know what real people did. Because if G.B. Jones can do it, then maybe I can do it too, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, or Maya Deren, or you know, choose your
Maya Deren,
witch.
There's another amazing artist.
Yeah.
You know, and the work of like Rosalie Norton and Marjorie Cameron and Valerie Myers, like, you just don't see that work in the pagan world, and that's what I think the work would be nice to see more of, rather than cute elves. Nothing against that.
No, we love cute elves, but they're not the only thing in the world, right? Before we move on, since this is a podcast, so it's audio, hi listeners, can you like just kind of describe your art style for the people who can't see it right now?
Oh, okay. So this I consider like punk rock witchcraft.
Yes.
Basically, it's a bit raw. It's a bit looser. I've been trying to explain to people the process, and it's very nebulous. So it might, but I just sit down with like a lot of different portraits of the people I'm drawing, and I just kind of sit with them for a while and try to, like, I don't know what you call it, get in touch, establish some kind of link.
Yeah, channel them.
Kind of, and I kind of wait for them to tell me what to draw, if that makes any kind of sense.
It does to me, yeah.
And it has to be really spontaneous, and it has to just like be, I can't think about it. Like, I don't want to like plan it all out. It has to be a spontaneous kind of, I don't know what you call it, outburst almost.
But that's very punk rock too, right?
Yeah. It's intuitive. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's intuitive and emotional. And a lot of the other work I've done is very controlled and technical.
I'm just going to read a little something. And this was written by Caroline Azar. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Azar?
Yeah. And she's the lead singer of Fifth Column.
Yes, of course. I should have said lead singer of Fifth Column, Caroline Azar.
And songwriter and organ player.
Obviously, you two are still good friends.
Yeah.
She's writing about you here. And she wrote her being G.B. Jones. Message to a young generation of misfits is that they belong to a timeless tradition of sacred rebellion, and to those who came before them, a reminder of their duty to illuminate the path. So I want to know, first of all, can you talk to me as long as possible about this notion of sacred rebellion?
Well, you know, I think all the witches in the book, the real witches, are have encountered, and as far back as we can remember the history of witches, it's about encountering adversity and yet continuing onward despite that. Rosalie Norton, for instance, she had her first art exhibition and the police came and, you know, took 4 of the drawings and declared them obscene. Sybil Leek had her landlord tell her that if you admit that or denounce witchcraft, I'll let you live in the building. Otherwise, I'm tearing up your lease. And she ended up having to move to the States. Valley Myers left France, where she'd been living for a few years, to visit someone in Vienna. She tried to come back in the country, and they said, "We're not admitting you into the country anymore. You're undesirable."
Undesirable, yeah.
And so she went to Italy. But you see, it didn't. You have to not let those kind of forces defeat you. And I think that's the rebellion right there, just existing, keeping going, not giving up, not submitting to their authority, and accepting their condemnation. Does that make sense?
It does. And then how do we make sure that our rebellions are sacred?
Well, yeah. I don't know if I have an answer for that, to tell you the truth, Amy. I don't know if I can figure that out.
I guess maybe I can give you my answer.
Sure.
Especially as it relates to you. I believe that all creativity is connected to spirit and is sacred. But literally all acts of creation and creativity are sacred. So for you, art making is that sacred rebellion, right?
Yes.
Music making.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. It's within the art, within the process of making the art, within the process of making the music. Caroline always used to say, like, Fifth Column would get together and we'd be practicing, we'd play like one song like for an hour, and it would become like a trance that we would just be enveloped in. And, you know, this kind of collective spirit would rise out of it and become a whole out of the individual parts, because we entered this trance state and like let ourselves succumb to like becoming one almost.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
It does. You keep asking, does that make sense? And I'm sitting here like, yes. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. Again, like, we're witches. You know, we make magic. We don't wait for magic. We start a band, and that music becomes part of our practice, or part of our trance, or part of our shamanic journey, or whatever that might be.
Yeah,
right?
it's true.
And what about this part? Your duty to illuminate the path. Tell me about your duty to illuminate the path for, say, younger people.
Well, if I go back to, like, say, when I was a teenager and I met lots of kids downtown, I was going downtown a lot. I've met a lot of street kids, and I felt like if I could see, you know, when I developed queercore, for instance, when I could see a way that would make it possible for people to connect through, like, the vehicle of a zine or the vehicle of a band, for all these queer kids who didn't have that kind of community, you know, I felt kind of a responsibility to go ahead and do it. So, you know, at the time, people were horrified. You know, Bruce has written in an article about how some of his friends were saying, you shouldn't have anything to do with her, you know.
Is it just like misogyny in the gay community? I'm sorry. There's so much misogyny.
I think these were more like academics who thought he was ruining his career.
Got it.
And I think, like, at that time, a lot of people thought, oh my God, they're ruining their careers. Like, at that time, this is pre-Ellen, pre-Joan Jett coming out. Like, there were no public figures except for experimental filmmakers like Jack Smith and Andy Warhol and who else can I think of?
Well, you have before said that the the history of experimental cinema is a history of queer cinema.
Yes.
Do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
I mean, from the very beginning, so many of the filmmakers were queers. James Boughton, I'm not going to remember all the names
That's okay.
right now.
Greg Araki, John Waters.
Those are more
name
recent
100,
people,
yeah.
but I would think James Boughton started in the 1940s.
Mhm.
Kenneth Anger started in the 1940s.
Anger, yes. Yeah.
And so there was an amazing experimental film theater in Toronto called the Funnel. And I constantly went every single weekend to see films. And I thought, well, if like queer people can exist in the experimental film world, why can't they exist in the music world, in the, zine world? It just doesn't make any sense that we would have to pretend and hide and just to be able to have a music career. And because it didn't make any sense to me, I just went ahead and did it, regardless of the consequences. I just kind of didn't care at that point.
Do you feel like that was an act of courage, or just you didn't even think about it? You just, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go.
I more thought that I needed to do it.
Yes.
Like in the sense of having a certain responsibility. Once the idea occurred to me, I thought, I kind of have to follow through with this.
Mm-hmm.
There's no kind of turning back when you realize a potential, I think. Like I could see the potential in this idea, like, because there'd already been a few zines and I'd already kind of formed a little bit of a network with different kind of anarchist scenes and like other kinds of punk scenes, and people were doing kind of pop culture zines, and they touch on gay things, queer things, but when I could see the potential for this kind of networking to evolve, I just felt like I had to go forward with it.
Yeah.
And
like it was scarier not to do it than to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing is true with Fifth Column. Like we had this cassette scene, and we started like really, like every time we go to a town, we play with different bands. We'd always try to play with other bands with women in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it became really interesting to kind of like put out cassette tapes that featured all bands with women, and we began to form these networks of women in different cities, in Montreal, in London, Ontario, and just like ASF, we're in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And that made life, when you have that kind of a network, it just makes life so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps, I think it helps a culture to evolve.
Mm-hmm. You know, I told you that I'm staying with my sister. I'm here in Toronto. I don't live here, so I'm staying with my sister. And she had been going through old boxes and had pulled out all of these letters that I had written her and things I had sent her through the post. And we were talking about what a lost art that is. But back when you were creating these networks, that was we didn't have the internet. So you were putting things in the post. You were putting posters on a wall and hoping that somebody would see it.
Yeah.
How hard was that? Or we hadn't even conceived of the internet, so it didn't, we didn't know that it could even be easy.
Right. I wrote thousands and thousands of letters. I'd be writing, every single day I wrote letters to a huge network of people by the end of JD. All across North America, in the UK, and some other countries, Italy. I can't remember all the different countries at this point. But yeah, it was kind of insane. At a certain point, it was kind of overwhelming because I couldn't keep up with the letters that kept coming in.
Because people would, all of these letters that you sent out, you would get responses. Yeah. And we would young listeners, I'll tell you, we would decorate the envelopes, we would show stuff inside. It was a real art form.
Yes, it was.
Correspondence art.
Yes, it was very similar to the correspondence art that had started in the 50s. And, people would be sending posters and postcards and doing stamping. I sometimes would do drawings on letters and decorate with lots of different fonts. And so it was a real art form. It's true, which is kind of lost now, and it's kind of sad.
I think so too. I mean, I still love to send stuff through the post, but again, I'm a
I do
woman of a
too.
certain age, so that's what I'm kind of used to, and I don't want to lose I don't get Christmas cards anymore. Nobody sends Christmas cards anymore, but I do.
Yeah, I wanted to last year, but the mail strike was on, so I couldn't.
And now they're having another one.
I know.
So I might it's like early October now. Maybe I'll send them out now and hope for the best.
Right.
I want to talk about, there's this, for me anyway, this amazing point of intersection between punk and queer and witch. And I think you sort of exist at that intersection. What have you found there? What have you seen there? What do you think about the sort of overlapping ethos of witch and queer and punk?
That's a really good question.
Thank you. I wrote it myself.
And I haven't really thought about that before, and it's something I should think about. In my own life, I have not had those different aspects all meet up.
They're sort of compartmentalized up until this book.
Yeah. Yes. But of course, there have been lots of queer people involved in the occult world and in witchcraft for
Why do you think that is?
forever.
Yeah.
Because it's more it's not it's not the it's outside of the realm of the Judeo-Christian morality.
Yes.
Which is not really a morality, but Dogma. Thank you. Which makes it possible to embrace different kinds of living experiences and sexualities, gender expressions that just are not accepted in the so-called conventional norms of society. And I think though, my friend Scott Trelevin, he's been working in that area for quite a long time, where he has been able to meld the two together in a really successful way. And, I'm sure there's other people too that I don't know of. It's just me personally, I haven't been able to do that really until now. Yeah. But I have been involved in lots of different kind of pagan enterprises, and it's just that the people that followed my work, zines and art, didn't cross over into that world really. So I have to kind of make an effort to make them all meet in one place.
And what does your pagan practice look like? I mean, I, again, have been following you for many years, so I know about the queer part and I know about the punk part. But what I didn't know about was the witch part. So what does your practice of magic or witchcraft or paganism look like?
Gee.
Do you dance naked under the moon?
No, I don't dance anymore because
Right.
I'll be a wreck. I've gone through many incarnations of different kinds of practices in my life. Like when I was young, I was, in the church choir, and singing is a great spiritual activity, I think.
I agree.
That kind of transcends whatever ideology is being trying to impose on it. So that was where I found something of value in the church. I didn't find much else of value in the church. I mean, although I have to say, at the time when I was young, my models for Christianity were the priests and ministers who were marching with Martin Luther King, and people involved in the civil rights struggle and protests in Vietnam, because I come from so ancient, far back history.
Ancient history. Yes, back in the 1900s.
So at least I have models that weren't that's not to say that pretty soon the world became aware of all the horrors going on in the church and what they're they'd been responsible for. But because I was so religious when I was young, the first thing I encountered that kind of helped me break away from that was I became friends with people from the Process Church when I was young. And so that's a whole different, they have a whole different pantheon, which includes Christianity, but also includes, you could say Satanism, but it's actually based in psychology, so it's not a literal representation. Like they're not actually Satanists.
It's an archetype.
It is an archetype, yeah. So it helps me move beyond the limited ideas of Christianity that I've been born into, basically. And then from there, I think I just started exploring, doing tons of research, because this is what has been an interest of mine for such a long time. I've been researching the history of kind of the Celtic people and their religious expressions, as limited the amount of knowledge as is available to us, unfortunately, because there's no written records really, except in the Welsh kind of.
And so much was destroyed.
So much was destroyed by the Christians. And so I know this might seem strange to some of your listeners, but I ended up joining the last remaining satanic grotto in Victoria, BC, that was aligned with the Church of Satan, although I wasn't ever a member of the Church of Satan. And it was a real, we'd just gone through the satanic panic of the 90s. And I was kind of like, I want to find out what's really going on. So I thought, I'm going to explore and find out what these, and the people I knew that were involved were all just amazing. We had a group of people that were incredibly diverse. The leader was First Nations and Scottish. Another woman was Haitian and Scottish. And there were two people that were Eastern European, so they brought back kind of pagan culture into the group. And all we did was research our pagan backgrounds and kind of compare notes and talk to each other about that. So I found it kind of amazing, but then the group folded. And
as groups do.
Yes, as they do. And so then I just continued my own research and readings, because I don't think I ever was aware that there might be covens in Toronto or even Ontario that were operative at that time, until I heard about your group. That's the first time I've really heard about a group.
I mean, secrecy by necessity, kind of.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
And that's another sort of overlap in the queer community, is that it's not necessarily safe to go out into the street and say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing.
I was just thinking about that today. That's so true. Yeah. We have to lead really circumscribed, careful existences, because like I said, with Rosalind Norton and Sybil Leek and Valerie Myers, there's always this kind of backlash against either your sexuality or your religious practices or your spiritual practices that sorry, I lost my train.
We don't believe in trains of thought around here. We're all about bumper cars of thought. Just bounce off one and into another. Yeah. But I was talking to a friend of mine recently who lives in the United States, and they're basically planning the American Inquisition.
I know.
So I was saying to her, it's never been safe to be a witch, but I think we forgot that for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And now we're being forced to remember that it's not necessarily safe to be, insert any word in there, anarchist or queer or witch or different in any way.
Yes.
So that has been, again, I'm almost 50, so I have almost 50 years of world perceptions, and it's been terrifying and fascinating to see this new backlash that I thought we were past.
I know.
I feel like there was this moment where it seemed like we were just all going to love each other and everything was going to be great, and then
Right.
no, the pendulum swung.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to swing back as far as it swung before?
It could. Because because right-wing projects and fascist projects are doomed to failure. Their very nature is, an aesthetic of failure, I think.
Please say more.
I think it's it's also a psychological what's the right word? I mean, fascists are people that have a certain psychological makeup that is very cynical, very destructive, very negative, and I think in a way they have a death wish.
Yes, it's a death cult.
Yeah. So that inevitably it has to end up burning down in flames, because that's kind of inside themselves, that's what they want.
Yes.
It's kind of like the self-loathing needs the destruction to happen, and they're just waiting for someone to take them down, because they can't do it themselves. They're cowardly people. If they had any strength, they'd go to therapy and get help, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or, do some reading and find out what the world's actually like. So I do think there's hope always, because people like that are failure is baked into the whole project.
Listeners, fascists are bound to fail. I want to talk about what I believe to be one of you, or you and Bruce's, I guess, or you and Bruce in Fifth Column, or you and your gang of troublemakers, one of your greatest acts of magic. And you've talked about this in interviews, Kathleen Hanna has, Bruce obviously, that y'all just kind of pretended there was this massive, rad, homo punk scene in Toronto.
Right.
And it became this self-fulfilling prophecy. And that to me is so much the core of magic, of imagine it and watch it manifest. Can you talk about that again, that genesis of pretending, willing something into existence?
Yeah. There was a very small group of people. We mostly worked at the same restaurant, which was called Just Desserts, JD's. And so, part of our little prank was that we were calling our fanzine the same initials as this restaurant, thinking people will encounter our zine somewhere and then they'll come into the restaurant and go, oh my God, these people are all pornographers really at this restaurant. So we put all of our friends that worked at the restaurant on the cover, and created this kind of mystique that and there were really 3 bands at that time. There was Fifth Column, there was ASF, which is Leslie Ma and Tracy Thomas's band in Colorado, and one of the guys from Homocore zine, Deke, he had a band called Comrades in Arms. So literally there were 3 bands at that time. There were actually a few more that I didn't know about until we did the tape. There was the Apostles in the UK, and there was Robert Omelette in LA. And then all the other people on the tape kind of did special projects just for the tape. But out of those few select people, just by putting them in and including them with other stuff that we dig up on the internet, old pictures from Kenneth Anger movies, and just combining all this stuff, it did create, because we kind of married our present and our hoped for future with the past, it gave a sense of a continuation that made it seem inevitable. So it's Kenneth Anger, Warhol, who else do we have? I'm just trying to think. it's been so long I
No,
can't remember
it's fine.
everything. But you get the idea. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this continuation from the past that makes the future seem inevitable. And it's kind of like a working, right? Kind of like we're going to guide you into thinking this way, and
That's okay.
And lead you into a present that will be more.
A present that will be more, period. Yeah, I buy that for sure.
Okay.
I am sort of, unsurprisingly, maybe kind of.
Oh no, more than the sum of its parts.
There we go.
That's what I mean.
That's the idiom we were looking for.
Sorry.
No worries at all. We're two human beings sitting in a corner in a library having this conversation. We are just experiencing this moment and not trying to understand it and be perfect. I reject perfection.
Okay.
100%. I completely reject it, and I think that we would be healthier if we all allowed ourselves to reject perfection.
That's true.
But I am like obsessed with zines. And again, in the internet age, people are still making paper zines, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
What I want you to do is finish this sentence for me, okay? And whether you want to talk about, quote unquote, back then, in the olden days of the 1900s,
Right.
or currently in the internet age, finish the sentence. Zines are potent political tools because...
Oh, that's good. Because mass media and the status quo culture is so predominantly exists in visual medium, and the literary world is so ignored at this point that it's almost like fertile ground for introduction of whatever subversive and transgressive ideas we want to get out there through the medium of print. I think I was talking to somebody the other day and wondering, like, are we moving into a period of time where we're post-literary?
Post-literary, ooh.
Like, are people going to be able to read in the future? Like, now they talk into their phones, they don't type, and they're going to get AI to write all their essays for them when they go to school. Because will they be able to write? I think that but at the same time, I think we are entering a really exciting period where I have so many friends and acquaintances who have little publishing houses, like Heretic House, like Midnight Mass. I have another friend, Dee, who has their own publishing enterprise for science fiction. There's Pilot Press in the UK. Richard Porter, who's got an amazing queer stuff, and I almost see that as being the new, independent record label of the 90s. Yes. Now it's like the independent publishing house, and they're putting out all the new ideas and all the new artists and writers. And I think it's actually really, like, just to veer away from the past, I think what's happening right now, but that's really exciting. And zine makers as well. People are still doing zines and journals, and I think that's really kind of where the alternative underground culture is right now, in that space.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about how the internet has sort of demolished almost like a mainstream idea, because we're not all watching the same show at the same time. We're not all reading the same story at the same time. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Because there's some benefits to a monoculture, right? That we have all of these shared experiences, but even just saying the term monoculture kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
I know. And was there really ever a monoculture? Because a different culture exists in the U.S. and it did in England and it did in India, then it did in Japan. So there was never really a monoculture. It was just very specific to different physical locations. So that's kind of what's interesting about the internet. It opens up the possibilities to go beyond borders. And I think that's part of the thing that people were really excited about the internet in the early days. There's a lot of obviously a lot of the speculation and promise of the early people working in the internet have not come to pass at all, and we've ended up with something kind of much worse. And I think in a lot of ways the internet has destroyed the underground. Things can't be underground anymore. But I think the place that they can be underground is in the literary world. Because it can't be posted onto the internet. You can't you could post a whole book, but the people that look at the internet all the time are not going to read it, right? So and there's such a beauty and pleasure in having a piece of paper in your hands and be able to look at the images and read, not staring at a screen. And you keep it in your home. I mean, the internet's in your home, but it's not. Once you turn it off, it's not there anymore. You can't turn off a book and have it disappear. And I think I think in the literary world and the publishing world, that's where there's so much potential right now.
This is a quote from you that I think is a good follow-up.
Uh-oh.
There's a phenomenon in mainstream media where they can make a lot of money out of marginalized people, different subcultures. They just kind of suck them up, use them for what they're worth, and toss them out and say, that trend's finished. Can you talk about this vampirism of marginalized people and their work and their culture?
Oh yeah, I mean that's I feel like that's been my experience, going through different kinds of, the queer scene was trendy for a couple of years, and it was on MTV, and then the next trend came along, and then and the grunge scene was popular for a couple of years, and then that's gone. And so it's just all about capitalism's desperate need for novelty to convince people, well, here's a new product that you haven't had before that you're really going to want to buy. And now that you've got it, you need to move on to the next thing that you'll really need to want to buy. So really it's just a trap. It's that is inevitable in a consumer culture. And you have to, I think, as a creator, kind of be aware of that. And I mean, you can kind of make use of it in a sense, because you might need to make a living, which is totally valid, I think. We can't be I've been through so many periods where people were absolute, the punk culture, you're never punk enough, and you can't do this and you can't do that. There's all these rules, and I just totally reject that, because in the end, people have to make a living, and it's easy to be a white male, a white cis male who says you're not.
Sorry to interrupt you. Today I was going to close at 5 in just 15 minutes.
Editor's note. This is the only cut I made to the interview because at this point, the loudspeaker announcing that the library was closing came on so loudly that it shook us in our seats, and I didn't want to subject you to that. Needless to say, we lost our train of thought. We ended up in a bumper car. Let's go back. Where were we?
Wow, that was loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was just talking about consumer culture.
Yeah. What's new and what's out, and what's garbage and what's next.
The creation of the illusion of novelty,
yes.
I think.
Yeah. I have to ask, obviously, the library is going to close soon, and I don't want to miss out on this, but I have to talk to you about fifth column. I mean, when I was coming up, again, I was born in 77, so I started high school in 91, and at that time, we had to make girl bands because the boys didn't want us in their bands. We weren't allowed to. I have actually heard the phrase more than I care to recall. No cock, no rock.
Oh my God.
Right? And so I want to know,
Revolting.
it is, but that's how I grew up, And so we did make girl bands, and we did just find a girl who played the drums and find a girl who and gather in basements, And I want to know, obviously it was a choice to make fifth column, women. But did you have that? Did you not even get rejected by male punks because you were like, we're not interested in playing with you, we want to play together? What was your experience of forming a quote-unquote girl band like?
Okay, so I had been in a band earlier called Bunny and the Lakers, and most of the people in the band were queer. And it was this is the early days of punk where, there was way more queer people involved in the whole thing. Although it was discreet, it wasn't, people were out, they weren't hiding in a closet. It's just that wasn't necessarily what the content of the music was about. Although in Bunny and the Lakers it kind of was, so. And so that band broke up, and I was looking for another band, and my friend, because I really missed playing music, and my friend Jack Brown said, well, I know these two women who want to start a band. Do you want to go over and talk to them? So I did, and they were really exciting, and they had amazing ideas, and so it was just kind of a fortunate circumstance that I ended up with them. But of course I wouldn't have joined unless I believed in what they were doing, and they were both feminists, and that was an integral part of what the whole approach to the band would be. And so I think, and with Bunny and the Lakers, it was a very conceptual band. Our ideas were we're going to change the idea of what a band is supposed to be. So when I started playing with that band, I was actually doing all the visuals. I was taking pictures, and I wasn't playing any instruments at first. And our idea of a band was that you could take pictures and be a member of the band. So I think at that time everyone was really considering what is a band? And does it have to be this? Does it have to be that? So I think because the two women I went to meet had a more conceptual idea of we want to have a feminist band, we want to be all women, we want to talk about these kind of things, topics that are relevant to our experiences. That's kind of, if I don't think I would have tried to join a band with just men, because they didn't have any kind of conceptual basis. They were we just want to rock, or we're punks. It's that wasn't really of any interest to me.
If it's not conceptual art, to me it's just decoration.
Yeah, or if it doesn't have any purpose. Fifth column had a very strong idea of our purpose was to network with other women, to try to create a scene where women were welcome, and we knew that we wouldn't be included in the larger scene because, as you're saying, they just weren't interested.
No cock, no rock.
Right, or they looked at us and said, well, they're just trying to get boyfriends.
Well,
because they didn't know us.
You can't see my eyes rolling, but trust me.
So we were subject to that kind of, dismissal constantly in those days. But that didn't really mean that much to us because we were more intent on forming our own scene that would be a place for us to live and work in. And it was surrounded with other feminist women, with queer people, with gender variant people, and a whole network of people that was life-sustaining for us.
My final question.
Very much like a coven.
Yes, very much like a coven. I think a girl band is a coven, whether they self-identify that way or not.
Yeah.
So my final question before we get kicked out of here, are all women bitches?
No, but it's a kind of a, I think what we were trying to do with that song was like throw it back in their face. Like,
Absolutely.
and I think a lot of guys, when they heard that, were like, oh my God, like they've said that.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to kind of confront them with the knowledge that we know what you're saying about us.
Yes.
Right? That's what it was.
Yeah. And you were instructed not to play the song when you played live on Much Music, which, listeners, is like the Toronto MTV, Canadian MTV.
Right.
But you played it anyway. And
Yes.
then you were never on Much Music ever again.
No.
Any regrets?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Because censorship doesn't really help anyone.
Mm-hmm. Censorship doesn't help anyone.
No.
Any parting words?
It doesn't help the people it's supposed to protect.
Yes. Yes. Censorship doesn't help the people it's supposed to protect.
Yeah.
That's the end of that sentence for sure. Anything else you want our listeners to know other than go out right now and buy Witches by G.B. Jones, presented by Heretic House and Midnight Mass? What are your closing words to a Missing Witches Coven?
We're closing at 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, now I have to think of it.
Now you have to think of something so brilliant.
I know, exactly. Support your local coven.
Yes, good, perfect. Bless fucking me. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Oh,
and
you're
doing this,
welcome.
Julie. What
Thank you
a
so much
joy.
for having me on the
And
show.
I have to say, like, we're face to face, and you're so beautiful, it's distracting. So, sorry if I got distracted by your
Sweet
beauty.
of you.
Let's go get some coffee or whatever you want to drink.
Yeah.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven, come hang out with us. Or buy our books, New Moon Magic and Missing Witches, and our deck of oracles, the Missing Witches Deck of Oracles. Find everything you need to know at missingwitches.com.